Okay, so you want to really get what soak testing is all about in software engineering, right?
Yeah,
But without, getting bogged down in all the like technical jargon and stuff.
exactly.
And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to
Fortunately.
break down what soak testing is, why it's so important, and what kinds of problems it helps uncover.
Sounds good.
We've got some great materials that you shared with me, including this image about the testing cycle.
Right.
So let's jump right in. Maybe we can start with like just a basic definition. What is soak testing in a nutshell?
Yeah, so soak testing, you can think of it as a type of performance testing, but it's a little different than other types.
Okay.
It's not just about how fast something is, it's about how well it holds up over a really long period of time.
So like endurance.
Exactly, like a marathon, not a sprint.
Gotcha. So it's about making sure that a software application can handle like a lot of activity over a long period.
Yeah, and not just a lot of activity, but like a constant heavy load for hours or even days.
Wow. So when do people actually do this kind of testing?
Usually before you release the software to the client,
Makes sense.
especially for applications that need to run 2047, like, financial systems or e-commerce sites.
Right. So you don't want it to crash in the middle of like a huge sale or something.
Exactly. And also, if you think there might be issues that only show up over time, like memory leaks.
Oh, that's interesting. So it can catch those like hidden problems.
Yeah, and because these tests can take so long, they're often run like overnight or over the weekend.
That makes sense. So how does a soak test actually work? Like what's the general approach?
So the basic idea is you simulate a bunch of users all using the system at the same time.
Okay.
Like they're doing all the normal things that real users would do, like logging in, browsing, buying things, whatever the application is for.
Right. So you're putting the system under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And then you just let it run and watch what happens.
Okay. And you said these tests could last for days.
Yeah, some of them could go on for quite a while.
Wow. And during that time, you're like monitoring everything.
Right, we're looking at how much CPU is being used, how much memory is being used, how quickly the system is responding to requests, things like that.
So it's a lot of data to keep track of.
It can be. Yeah, and you also want to make sure that the tests are realistic, like you're simulating the kind of activity that the system will actually see in the real world.
That's a good point. So what are some like key characteristics of soak testing that make it different from other types of testing?
Well, the duration is obviously a big one. These tests are long,
Right.
and you have to make sure the application can run without any interruptions for that whole time.
Yeah, no breaks.
Right, and the scenarios that you test should be things that the stakeholders have agreed on.
So everyone's on the same page about what's being tested.
Exactly. And another important factor is the maintenance schedule for the system.
Oh, how so?
Because you can't really run a soak test during a maintenance window, so the time between those windows kind of determines how long your test can be.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. So can you give us some like real world examples of where soak testing is used?
Sure, so one example is in the banking industry.
Okay.
They might simulate a huge amount of data coming in from merchants all at once, and then they'll let the system run for like 70 to 150 hours to see if it can handle that.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, and another example is for systems with a lot of concurrent users, like a popular website.
Okay.
They might simulate thousands of people logging in at the same time and see if the system stays stable for like 60 or 70 hours.
So it's really about making sure the system doesn't crash under pressure.
Exactly, and even for things like video games or mobile apps, you can do soak testing by leaving the app running in different modes for a long time and see if the performance starts to degrade.
That makes sense. So what kinds of problems does soak testing usually uncover?
Well, the things that you're really looking for are the subtle issues that might not show up in a shorter test,
Okay.
like memory leaks, for example. If a program is slowly leaking memory, it might run fine for a short time, but eventually it'll crash.
Because it runs out of memory?
Exactly. And you can also find problems with database resource utilization, like if the system isn't closing database connections properly.
Oh, right. That could cause problems.
Yeah, it can lead to slowdowns or even stalls. And sometimes you'll see performance degradation over time.
Even if the system was performing well initially.
Right, it might start out fine, but then gradually get slower and slower.
And that's something that you wouldn't catch in a short test.
Right, and another common issue is failure to close connections between different tiers of a system,
Okay.
and also problems with the way internal data structures are handled.
So it's really about uncovering those hidden performance bottlenecks.
Exactly.
So just to summarize, soak testing is all about ensuring that an application can handle a sustained heavy load for a long period of time.
Yep.
And it's a really important part of the software development process because it helps us catch those subtle issues that might not show up in other types of testing.
Absolutely. It's a crucial type of performance testing that focuses on long-term stability under heavy usage.
And it gives us confidence that the system can handle real-world conditions.
Exactly.
This has been a really great overview. I think I have a much better understanding of what soak testing is all about.
Glad to hear it.
It really makes you think about all the work that goes into making sure that software is reliable and can handle those like everyday stresses.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially with so many services these days that need to be available all the time,
Right.
I wonder how that's going to impact the way we do soak testing in the future.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your expertise on this. It's been really enlightening.
No problem. Happy to help.
So, for everyone listening out there, keep that in mind. Soak testing, it's more than just a quick check. It's about making sure your software can go the distance.
Absolutely.
All right? Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.